Welcome to the Unity Guides Expert Interview Series. My name is Clayton Stenson, and I'll be your host today. This series is brought to you by Unity Guides Incorporated, where we help develop Unity within companies running on the entrepreneurial operating system. We do this through fractional integrator services and relationship coaching for the visionary and integrator. And the reason I started this interview series is that I've met some pretty amazing people in recent years, and the conversations we've had have been valuable to me. So I thought I should share them with other people to add value to them as well. And today's guest is Derek Newcomer. Derek is an EOS implementer in Pennsylvania. Welcome, Derek.
Thank you, Clayton. It's awesome to be here. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Awesome. So tell us a little bit about yourself before we get into today's topic.
Sure. So I've had quite a wide variety of experiences kind of leading up to become an EOS implementer. Always been one to kind of stretch myself, see what the limitations are. Grew up in a Christian household, so faith is a really core, important part of who I am. Coming out of high school, I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do. Always was into sports. So my dad was always into sports. He was a runner. He was competitive in the amateur field, meaning he would win all the local road races, and he was a good runner at that amateur level. And so I always watched him and his habits, and he was a doer, always doing something ultra focused in what he was doing. So I picked up a lot of that and those tendencies, and fell in love with fitness and just what it could do for your mindset and your body. So I went to Messiah College, graduated with a degree in sport and exercise science, and ultimately started my own fitness training business in 2011. And just through my own personal experiences of having good fitness habits. Now, Clayton, I'm not perfect. So I don't want anybody to feel that I've had perfect fitness habits for my life, which that is not true. I've been 195 pounds. I've been 152 pounds, and kind of everything in between. And I can give you more details on what those phases looked like.
That's one of the gifts of Zoom is that you can only see us from the chest up.
Oh, yeah. And through that process too, Clayton, especially vacillating basically about almost 45 or so pounds, I came to value the nutrition aspect of the fitness side.
Mm-hmm.
And so God really led me, started my own business, fell in love with the coaching side. Just really loved helping people get to from where they were to wherever they wanted to be, whatever that end picture or goal really looked like. And what really drew me into the coaching part, Clayton, I love the fitness part, love the training, pushing your body, but the tie between pushing your body physically and your mental attitude and aptitude, how that affects that, is pretty amazing. I really fell in love with that aspect. And that's kind of what also got me into the EOS part as well. I'm just simply coaching professionals and how they're stewarding the gifts and resources that they've been given. And in my training practice, I kind of fell into a niche of working with that kind of white collar professional. How do you fit effective fitness and nutrition into your daily lifestyle? Because we got 52 things pulling us 52 different ways. And some of those basic habits that aren't necessarily, not necessarily popping out as extremely important. Oh, this is going to put food on the table. This is what I need to go, provide for my family. Some of those fitness and nutrition habits can kind of become the first things to go until we realize that's actually setting the tone and the plane for what I do when I go out to my job, when I go out to interact with the people around me. So those are easily skipped. But then I think we realize once you're in the habit, you realize actually how foundational they truly are.
Yeah, that's good. That's good, and I think that's true. It does often slip. The first thing to go. So when you're 152 to 175, what is it?
195.
No, but I'm talking about on the lower scale.
Okay.
Doing well. What's your routine look like?
Well, and I could I could say great question. When I was 190, 195, I was really strong. So I was just playing this game of,
Mm,
how strong I could get. I'm a guy, the ego, how much can you bench press? How much can you
yeah,
squat? How
yeah,
much can you lift? But I'm a lean build. I'm a runner build. Takes a lot of work for me to put on muscle mass, a
right.
lot.
Yeah,
And anything over about 180, I just didn't feel I couldn't run very well. My knees were sore if I would try to run. I was
right.
strong, Clayton, and it was fun to say, "Hey, I can push
Mm.
this weight around."
So it wasn't like you were doing anything. You were just
I
bulking.
was I was lifting and I was eating.
Hmm.
So I was eating a lot,
Yeah.
um and I was big enough to hide some of the extra poundage I had around
Hmm.
my waist.
Yeah. Yeah.
But back to your question of once I hit about 178, 175 and below, that's where I felt the best.
Yeah.
Um, And the older I get, I'm 42. The older I get, the more I'm realizing that I can't put in what God left out. So I gotta fall in love with my runner build. Right now I'm about 160, and I feel great at 160.
Yeah.
I'm never gonna be a lean 170 or 175 again, and that's fine. I've come to grips with that.
Yeah.
So now I maintain probably around 160.
Yeah.
Um, I work out. I try to get 6 days a weekend, and usually they're anywhere from 30 to 40-minute workouts. Two of them are intense. The other four are kind of moderate to low. I don't Clayton at 42. My priorities have changed. I don't train. I used to like to do Spartan races. If you're familiar with the
Yep.
Spartan
I've done
race.
one. Yeah.
And when I would train for one, I'd like to see if I could be competitive in my age group. So I trained to see where I could place.
Yeah.
Um, but also took a lot of energy. I put in more hours a week training.
Right.
Now, three boys, they're 13, 11, and 9. And I found that the harder I worked out also took energy from other aspects of my life.
Hmm.
Boys are into sports. So now, Clayton, it looks like I'll usually run 4 days a week, anywhere between 30 and 40 minutes, 30 to 45 minutes. One of those days is an interval day. So your body operates in different energy systems. So it's good to mix it up, meaning if you're doing cardio, a higher intense, faster day with a lower intensity, slower day on another day.
Yeah.
And then I'll lift weights once a week and I'll do a body weight training circuit once a week. It's kind of a high level.
So what are the benefits of this kind of a routine? Like you talk about how you feel. Like I'm probably like 160 to 210. I was 160 when
Got it.
I did a full marathon, and that's very like very not sustainable for me. But I tend to go up and down, probably more 180 to 200.
Okay.
But I feel positive differences when I'm exercising. But I want to hear it from your perspective. What influence can it have? Impact can it have, particularly on stress?
So I think too, I'll kind of start so there's three body types. Um, and the three body types are I'm trying to get back to my textbook, and it's been a while since I've cracked my textbooks open. Ecto, meso, and endomorph. So ectomorph, mesomorph, and endomorph. Ectomorph is lean runner build. That's me.
Hmm.
Um, and mesomorph is your athletic. You can carry a little bit more lean mass, and your endomorph is more your big boned. Endomorph is kind of the guys you'd see on ESPN and the big strongman competitions.
Yeah.
Where your mesomorph is like your NFL running back um, build, and then your ectomorph is if you watch professional track and field, those guys lining up for the 800-meter or the mile,
Yeah.
um, or the mile or longer.
Yeah.
Part of it is falling in love with how you were created.
Mm.
Uh, I've tried to train myself, to try to maximize maybe some aspects that I don't necessarily have. So me falling in love with one, how God created me was really important. And just that having that mindset and putting me in the right mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and nutrition plays a big role as well. So if you want to talk about just the release of endorphins and what that does for your mindset and your body and the benefits of that, like you talked about that versus the medications.
Yeah.
Um, there's that aspect of it where we were created to move. Our bodies were created to move. Um, and a big problem that we have now is most of our lifestyles are very, very
We don't
sedentary.
need to move. We don't need
Exactly.
to hunt
Yep.
for
Yeah.
food. Yeah.
So, our bodies were created to move, and then we're there's a there's a there's a very we were created to move, but we're also extremely overstimulated, and we don't do anything with it. Whether it's caffeine, so we overload on stimulants like caffeine, and then we're also mentally stimulated. So the I read a research article. I think it was Simon Sinek hit on this, and I thought it was very interesting. He made the point of our something like our phones. So when we get a ding of a text message, or we get, a ding of a Facebook post, um, we get the same rush as in like a fight or flight type of response. So we are constantly stimulated, not just through caffeine, stuff we're consuming, but then also sitting around waiting for the next ding or the next hit
Mm-hmm.
or the next post. And so not only are we not active, but we're overstimulated. So if you think about that, we're overstimulated, but now we're sitting and we're not doing anything with that to relieve it. And that just builds up. So for me, two things were really important. One, was figuring out I don't process caffeine the best. So one thing that really helped me is every body processes caffeine a little bit differently. So I found that if I really lowered my caffeine intake, my stress levels went down. So my neck tension would go away, and my face tension
Mm-hmm.
would go. So if there's coffee drinkers listening to this, they might not like to hear that. But experiment a little bit with yourself. If you're drinking 3, 4, 5 cups a day and you're on edge all day long, I would bet that's gonna play a
Mm-hmm.
role.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I try to keep myself under 100 milligrams a day, which is about like a cup of
Mm-hmm.
coffee, or it'd be like a cup and a half of tea, like a black tea, or a cup of
Mm-hmm.
black tea, a cup of green tea.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I find too, going out and just doing my workout and just retraining my brain to get focused on the workout and not focused on the stresses and the other stuff that's going on, really helps me focus on the priorities and being in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a visionary, Clayton, so I'm always, the Dan Sullivan gap and gain theory. I've lived in the gap, and that was extremely stressful. I should be here. I should be here. I should be here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and being in the moment in my workouts, enjoying where I was, maximizing the abilities that I had, but then also figuring out that nutrition plays a really big role in what
Mm-hmm.
we put in our bodies. If we're fueling ourselves like a old beater junk car, and doesn't matter what we put in there,
Yeah.
or are we fueling ourselves like a Ferrari and
Yeah.
giving ourselves what we
Yeah.
truly
Feeling it. That's good. I had a friend, I remember I was working out with him, and he was intense. Like he was ripped. Like he worked out twice a day most days. And he asked me what I was eating, and I told him, and he's like, Clayton, eating junk is like working out and then eating junk is like washing your hands and drying them on the floor.
Yeah, good analogy.
Right. And I thought that was good. And then I'll just tell another quick story. I remember I used to make fun of runners. I was always an athlete, always into sports, but I never like just ran for running. And then a friend of mine got me into running, and I ended up doing a half marathon, and then I did another half marathon, and then I did a full marathon. And I remember when I was training for that first half marathon, it was 12 weeks. The first day we did 2.5 kilometers in like 25 minutes or something. And it was horrible. I thought I was going to die. But then 12 weeks later, I ran a half marathon. And I remember the mental benefit of that. It's like, man, if I can, you know, develop my body and get in better shape and overcome this obstacle and run a half marathon, I can do anything. You know what I mean? Like that's what it felt like, the mental side of it. And then at that time I was working at a church and we did a car show on Father's Day every year. And it was always like a marathon. We'd start at like 6 a.m. It went from like 9 to 4 and then we'd clean up. And by the time you're done, it's like a 12-hour day. And I remember before running, I was so tired.
Hmm.
After running, at the end of the day, I'm like, okay, I think I'm going to go for a run. Right. And it was just incredible to me, right? How much of a difference it made on my endurance and abilities to live life, to live a fuller life. Right. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, like what are your thoughts around that? Like just the impact on your mental state.
Uh, so I kind of, a few years ago, I went and I developed 4 buckets for my life. So I have
Yep.
4 buckets for my life, and that's kind of how I make decisions.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not perfect. And so my buckets are, and these are priority order. I probably call them faith, family, fitness, and finance. Um, and they all work together. Um, but
Yeah.
first and foremost, Jesus Christ plays that ultimate role in my faith. I filter that down through all my decisions. My family, what I do, how's it going to affect my family? How's this going to affect my fitness? And then how's this going to affect my finance? In finance, I mean business as a whole.
Yeah.
I just thought there you had 3 F's. Business wasn't an F. You got faith,
You got to
finance,
change it to
or
find.
fitness. So why not? We'll
Gotcha.
say finance. But um, and I found that fitness, all of them affect each other, but fitness just helps me be better in every single one of those categories.
Hmm.
I feel through my fitness, I'm honoring God with the body that He created me with. Um, and through my fitness, I'm honoring my family. My wife appreciates that I stay fit, that I
Well, your
stay
boys do
strong.
too, I bet. Like I have 3 boys as well. I'm sure your boys are
Absolutely.
glad that you're not a couch potato dad. You can do stuff.
Coaching. When I tell them, Clayton, I said, they're 13, 11, and 9. I said, I'm going to be faster and stronger than you for as long as possible. So maybe not bigger, maybe not taller, but faster and stronger for as long as possible. So
Oh,
we'll see what
my
happens there.
my 7-year-old is already pushing my speed limit. I gotta step.
Um, and and then with business, with finance, and I mean with EOS and with implementation, and then I still do kind of a small amount of different coaching outside of that. But going through a session day, I mean, sometimes I had a 2-day annual on Thursday and Friday, so we had back-to-back days. They're intense days. We get into issues. We get into, I mean, we poke the bear when there's stuff going on, and for me to be at my best, to have the mental clarity, to be present the whole time, to ask the right questions,
Yeah.
to not be afraid to enter the danger. I gotta, my workouts set that energy
Hmm.
line. And then my nutrition. I know if I'm eating bad, if I'm drinking too much caffeine, I'm eating too much sugar, I'm gonna get cloudy, I'm gonna get foggy through the afternoon. And that all plays a big role.
Hmm. I know one thing that I've realized recently. I remember I had a season that I knew was going to be hard. It was coming up. I'm like, okay, this is going to be a hard mental season. So I decided to double down on 2 things in order to get through that season. One was my time with God, devotional time and prayer time and all of that. And one was exercise. So I just committed during that, I think it was 2 or 3 months, that I was going to walk or run every day. Uh,
Mhm.
and I was eating well too during that time. And even though it was a hard season, it was much better than I could have been, right?
Yeah.
Because I was, focused on those 2 things. And I agree with you; those 4 things are really good, and they support one another. Um, So what advice do you have? Like, so you have a fitness background. So what advice do you have for somebody who's listening to this and like, yeah, that's great. Right now. But I'm like well beyond the 200 pounds. How do I, how do I get started? Like what would you say? What would you say to them?
Two, I guess the first two or three things that pop in my mind is or are um, don't get stuck on the goal. So meaning when I would get a client in the gym, like we would set a goal, but the focus would be the small habits. Okay, this is the goal, sure. I'm 225 pounds. I'd love to get to 185. Okay, great. That's the goal. But the goal is only achieved with the small habits.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're going to choose two or three small habits to start, two of them should be nutrition based because that's the bigger part of the battle. Bigger part of the battle is nutrition.
Yeah.
Um, most people are dehydrated; they don't drink enough water,
Mm.
and watch caffeine intake. That's the those two are huge. They can make a big difference. I'll throw a third one in there too with the nutrition: sugar. Clayton sugar is killer. So processed sugar, I would have people metabolize sugar a little bit differently. Some people will metabolize it, and the addiction will be equivalent to drug addiction.
Right.
Um, so so if you can break that sugar habit, and it could be painful. People will go through sweats, withdrawals, shakes, headaches,
Right.
similar to a detox. Now, what is a detox? But
It
similar
is.
to
Yeah.
a drug detox. And if you can break those habits, that's huge. It'll help your body reset itself, and help it function better the way it
Yeah.
was created to do. And then just set small exercise habits. You don't have to do it an hour a day, 6 days a week. You can make a big difference in your life for 20 minutes, 3 times a week, coupled with small
Mm-hmm.
nutritional changes. So if I had to boil it down to three or four things, Clayton, drink water a lot, 3 to 4 quarts a day, depending on your size. Watch your caffeine and sugar. If you can break your sugar addiction, break that sugar addiction. That's huge.
Mm-hmm.
And then figure out what would I like to do for a workout. There's no perfect. Everybody doesn't need to run.
Yeah.
Everybody's not built to run. If you could pick 2 cardio days and then pick one strength training day, just
Mm-hmm.
really easy, low level.
Yeah. Yeah.
And step into those habits and then maybe slowly increase the time or
Yeah. Yeah.
slowly.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know one thing I used to do is um I used to find that I would work, I'd go to work and I would just be at my desk like all day long and I wouldn't take any breaks. So one thing that I did is I just decided, okay, I'm going to take a half an hour lunch and I'm going to go for a walk. And I found that benefited me like fitness wise. At least I got some exercise, but also I found that just being outside, getting some fresh air cleared my mind, and it helped me. And I would leave my phone on my desk as well. It was almost like a clarity break, like EOS talks about. So that's another thing that we can do to just start
Yeah.
simple, right? Start
Yeah.
small. Um, it made a big difference. You got to grab your power cable. So I'll just say while he's getting his power cable, another quick story that I have. So myself, I've been through some pretty hard seasons in my life. My first son passed away, and I went through a pretty dark season of grief and depression. And during that season, I started taking meds. And the doctor, when I was meeting with him, he told me, and Derek kind of alluded to this earlier, that he said that if you did 30 minutes of hard exercise, it would do the exact same thing for you as taking this antidepressant. Right. So that, to me, I was like, wow, that really underscored the importance of exercise, because I think so many of us, like you said, Derek, are not active, right? We don't have to be active anymore, but the mental benefits as well as the physical benefits are something that we should seriously consider. So awesome. You got power
Mhm.
again?
I do. I'm good. I'm good.
I've had that before too, where it's like, oh, This is raw and real. We're not going to edit this out.
There you go.
Vulnerable and authentic.
Perfect. Love it. That's the only way to be.
Awesome. Awesome. And morning or evening, or does it really matter? Whatever
It
works for you.
doesn't. I'm a morning person.
Me
I
too.
love getting it done. Um, it doesn't matter. It's all about your schedule, when you want to do it. I've if I wait till the afternoon, Clayton, it doesn't get done. I
Same.
feel great, and I'm not working out as hard as I used to. So for me, the workouts now are I work some days are hard, um, but it's about giving me energy to be my best through the other priorities I have to execute through the day.
Yeah.
And if I don't work out in the morning, I
I
can
feel a
tell.
difference. Yeah, I
Hmm.
feel different. I'm not a morning person in terms of like liking to wake up in the morning, but I get up at 5:30 almost every day, and I go weekdays and I go to the gym. I do my 45 minutes. I read my Bible, and then I start my day. And I feel a difference when I do that, and compared to when I don't.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's
absolutely.
that's good. And getting a buddy to do it with, that helps also,
Hmm.
right? Someone that's gonna text you and be like, "Hey, where were you today?"
If you so Kind of give you, I guess, a little bit of insight to me. I don't know why. I guess it's a blessing, but I enjoy working out. I know that's probably not the majority. But for me, my workout time is my
Yeah,
alone rejuvenating focus time.
right.
Um, but I know for some people, I'm an introvert as well, Clayton. So
Right.
me being by myself is how I get rejuvenated. And two things. If you're an extrovert, it's going to be awesome to have a buddy there. They're going to keep you accountable. It's going to be that much more rejuvenating. But then if you're just not a workout fan, and these are new habits, you need to drive accountability with the new habit. So if I was going to say, hey, I decided I'm going to train for the Spartan race next year, I'd probably have to draw in an accountability buddy for at least the next month or two, just to make sure I got
Get
myself
going. Yeah.
back on track. Because my boys are older, priorities are different than when I was training for Spartan, say 8 years ago.
Yeah.
Um, but that accountability buddy is huge.
Yeah. But I like what you're saying though, Derek. You've said kind of along the lines of discover how God made you.
Mhm.
Don't try to do something contrary to that. Right. So I'm a mesomorph, I think. If
I Yeah,
I'm not gonna be like skinny and lean and like I can't ever win a marathon probably, right? Like I'm just not built for that. Right.
probably not.
Right. And I'm also not the guy that's gonna be, you know, 250 pounds and 5% muscle, or 5% body fat or whatever. Like that's just not me. I'm in the middle somewhere. I'm also an introvert, right? So I do go to the gym 3 days a week right now. Two of those are with somebody. One was by myself, and I look forward to the day by myself. I
Hmm.
love my buddy if he's watching this. I love you, but I also enjoy the day when you're not there, right? Because I seem just like you. I enjoy that, alone time. And when you have three boys, you don't have much alone time, right? They're
Yeah,
on
absolutely.
they're on top of you whenever you're around.
Yeah.
so so that's good. And I think that is one of the challenges I think that we have as people generally is that we compare way too much, right? And
Oh, absolutely.
try to be
Agree.
something we're not. So get comfortable in your own skin and you be you, right?
Hmm.
It's good.
It's easy to it's easy to compare ourselves, especially with all the fitness magazines sitting on the racks as we check out of stores, as we go places.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
that's about, I think, I forget what it's 4 to 5%. 4 to 5% of the population. I don't have the body type to be on front of a magazine. Maybe Runner's World, but I don't know many people who strive to be on the front of Runner's World magazine versus Men's Fitness. Uh, but it's about 5%. Um, and and that takes an extreme amount of discipline. to what yes, there's airbrushing and all that kind of some artificial stuff that goes on, but
Yeah.
um I've cut myself down to single digit body fat percentage, not super low, but 8-9%. Um, but to get to 5 or 6% on what these people look like on the magazine covers um, is not a good goal for that for I'll say average.
Mhm.
I think that's a bad description because I don't consider myself average. I don't.
Right.
It's a
Right.
relative,
I get what you mean. Yep.
a relative. And the amount of discipline that that takes and the lifestyle that it takes is people need to realize that's their career. That's what they
Yeah.
do for that's what they do for a living. They do that. Their whole day revolves around that. And when you measure yourself by that, it's extremely unhealthy. And you're measuring. So I had breakfast this morning with a friend mentor. He's an EOS implementer. Great guy. Um, he does what I do, but he does it at a 2 to 3x times what I do. And that's who he is. That's his business, and that's what's right for him. But and if I compared myself to where he's at versus where I'm at, I really lose a lot of joy very quickly.
Mhm.
Um, and I don't, and I look up to him, and I'm learning from him, but I also don't strive to be exactly like him because I'm not created like him, and I don't think God's calling me to build a business just like his.
That's
So you can
mhm.
really get caught up in the gap.
Mhm.
Again, back to the gap and gain, the gap of, oh, I should
Yeah.
look like the front of the magazine when it
Yeah.
doesn't apply.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. I remember when I ran my full marathon, I trained hard and I was pretty disciplined. And I was 160, which I haven't been 160 since like grade nine. Right. And um I just but if I think back, like I was nowhere near that. You know what I mean? Like I looked good and I felt good,
Yeah,
but I was nowhere near that guy on the cover of the magazine. And I know how much effort that took.
yeah,
Right. So it's like, for the average person, not that you shouldn't be fit, but just yeah, be careful. I think
yeah,
our culture, we're getting a little off track here, but our culture is so trying to convince you that you don't have enough or that you're not enough, right? And resist that, right? Decide what matters to you and go after that and stop trying to measure up
yeah.
to something ridiculous. Awesome. That's great. Thank you, Derek. This is good.
You're welcome, Clayton. My pleasure.
So if someone wants to learn more about what you do, your coaching and EOS, how should they get in touch with you?
The best place to get in touch with me, EOS wise, is just my EOS landing page, which is eosworldwide.com/Derek, DEREK dash newcomer, NEWCOMER. Um, I don't do a lot of the fitness and nutrition coaching much anymore. But if people are looking for a resource, Precision Nutrition, I have zero affiliation with Precision Nutrition. I have my nutrition coaching certification is through them.
Yep.
I get nothing if they click on Precision Nutrition. I simply endorse them because I believe in what they do, and they're an extremely solid nutrition coaching resource. So if they're looking for stuff, solid nutrition guidance, Precision Nutrition is a phenomenal resource as well.
That's good. All right. Well, on behalf of our viewers, thank you for joining us today, Derek, and thank you for your sharing your passion on this topic. I'm sure that it will be impactful for people who are watching. And if today's interview added value to you, please subscribe to this channel for future interviews with experts in the world of business.